Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad that you were able to make it. I prepared this time a rather short agenda, but it's important. And so to get the ball rolling, first item is regarding what the duties are of the Finance Committee. When we look at this tremendous turnout, we think that a lot of people think that once we give the budget, it's over, but it really isn't over. It's really an ongoing thing. And so for everybody's enlightenment, if you look inside the package, you will see an extract of the duties of the Finance Committee, which far from ends with the preparation and presenting of the budget. It continues on. And it has a very interesting line in it, which says that we're to monitor the budget, monitor the expenses, monitor this. And if they're out of line, get them in line. Now, the budget is only our best guess. And one of the things I've always brought up is the budget should be quarterly, not annually. But basis these bylaws, and we have Mr. Richard here, how would you adjust a budget that's going out of line after the budget? And one of the big things is that I mentioned it before, out of 8 million plus, over $6 million is immobile because we're locked up with various contracts unless you break the contract. So it's very possible we'll be too high or too low. The only thing I could think of is additional income. And I brought that up before. It's in there to carry forward. And that is the famous T-bill fight. And I've done a lot more research. I didn't bring it up again for this time. Richard wrote a piece on it. But in my additional research, I find documentation that words were changed in the bylaws. And at this moment, I've been unable to find where they've been voted on, and it's not just in one place. So what I did, I noticed there were 2 people in charge. This is between 2007 and 2009. And one was Randall Bouchard, who was, I think, the chair. And the other was one of our former presidents. And I wrote to him asking him to explain if in fact they made changes to the words without voting on them. And I haven't received a reply. I've sent other things to her. But that one little word, or, which Richard wrote about, is costing this village, it's now 4%. 4% of 5 million, it's 200,000. And if you go back to 3 or 4 months, let's say it's 8,000 a month, we've already lost $24,000. And I would hope that we will get an answer. If we don't get an answer, the next step is requesting a copy of where it was voted on, which I haven't done yet. George Lowenstein, who was the president at that time, I did find documentation which was written by Randall Bouchard that George was making changes to make what he felt was the bylaws more understandable for the average person. And that's in writing. So beyond that, I don't want to give up on this. It's too much money. So that's one of the things that we should pursue. The other is checking all the contracts. I did write and I proposed that there are items which we are paying for and not getting, but I felt the T-bills is the largest. However, going from the largest, I then moved to the smallest, and with John's help, I inquired. John really was very helpful in this, as to how many pickups the fire department made and how many pickups our ambulance service made. Now, at the last meeting where they attended, I pressed them and she said very clearly, 300. And we've handed out this sheet. And the top number is 2,409. And I said, how could it be? Well, there's actually more, and John will get into it better. But if you take 2,400 and 365 days, you're not talking more between 7 and 8 trips a day for 365 days. And what I find interesting is their records show just about everything, which includes hazard calls, which includes automobile accident. I'm not sure what MIH calls means, but John, you.
Yeah, that's a mobile health.
So what I'm looking at is, and this has been an item for contention, is that we keep saying we're paying what, $1.17 a month per unit, $130,000 for the year. And according to their own representation, 2021-22 had only 300 pickups. And an argument was always made in the past, well, how much is it a pickup?
Wait a minute, they're saying they have 300 pickups and the fire department is saying 2,409 pickups?
I'll go the difference.
Could you say that again?
You're saying that
These aren't pickups, these are incidents.
Right,
the medical calls, 2,409, okay? And the company is only saying that they have 300 calls.
That's right.
So there's something is out of
Amiss.
whack here.
Well, if you recall, I had asked last year, and I repeated it this year, that were there any other calls? And last year they said, yes, between hospitals, it's not in the 300. But this year,
Wait a minute, I hate to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
something just popped into my brain.
I
Is
sort of
it
like.
possible that the 300 calls that they are talking about are only the ones that went from the fire department to the hospital?
That's true.
But the 2,409 is all the calls.
right.
Is that the case?
I'll go
Well,
to you in a second. I
not
can
true.
explain some of that.
Okay,
John's here. It very clearly says medical calls. And they went so far as down to 2 calls for something. It was made very clear, Olga, that when you take all the verbiage away and you read the contract, it is strictly a coverage for non-emergency transportation.
The 300 is part of this 2,400.
Yes,
Yeah,
The 300 is part of the
Part of it,
24.
yeah, full 911,
Yeah,
it's one of these.
right, but the 300
Is
in my
only-
guess are only the ones
Non-emergent.
that went from the red fire truck
from here.
to the hospital,
Right,
Correct.
right,
because not all of them do that.
right,
That's a guess.
yeah.
not pretty
Yeah,
good.
I would say
Okay.
that's a good guess.
Well, that explanation I didn't make up, it cleared it up in one
Okay,
fell swoop. You could read the contract. It is basically non-emergency from your home to the hospital.
okay, so let me ask another question. Are we discussing this for what reason? In other words, is it for the reason of eliminating them, or we're just talking about it just for the hell of it?
No, it's not for one reason. If you go to what we are supposed to do as a committee, whether it's $2 or 2,000, we should be looking at it and I try to get an answer as to why, at least in Palm Beach County, this is a gift of the gods. In other words,
It's fine. I'm happy with it. I have no problem. What's the problem? I don't understand.
well, the problem is every dollar counts.
So what are you trying to do? Get the cost down?
No, I want to find out, as I said, are we getting what we're paying for? Are you, take
Is there some
300,
indication that
put
we're
it
not?
into $117,000?
Are we, well, if you don't think, or some people don't think we're not getting what we're paying for, then they have to be specific and say what it is
Right.
that we think we should get in addition to. They have to spell it out so we know.
Well, I can tell you, there's a lot that's addition to. My big question is, this is a franchise that's given to a private company that's a multi-billion-dollar company.
Because of the state. The state gave them this business
Well,
and we have no control over that.
I called to Greg's office, Greg Weiss, and asked to get an answer. Are they getting paid from
The state.
AMC, AMR,
Yeah.
to get this franchise? This is like the golden goose.
Well, somebody could be getting a payoff. Who knows?
Well,
We don't know
There's a
that.
super-
What can you do
There's a
about
super
it?
PAC out there that they're contributing to, that's, I know, they put the politicians in that'll vote for them. And it's politics, what's that have to do with us?
We don't know.
Well, there is a possible solution, and it's maybe far out. But I don't know if you're aware, in New York and in Manhattan and in Brooklyn, which New York City has no prohibition for private enterprise to be, you have a very large volunteer ambulance service. And I asked one of the gentlemen who lived in Brooklyn to see what kind of information you can get. Because we have not just Century Village, you have a conglomerate of a fair amount of owners in a short period of time. And if it was a volunteer, if it was a charitable kind of a situation, maybe that kind of a monopoly can be broken. And it's not going to happen in a day. If you look it up, and I've done, there has been several attempts by other large ambulance companies to get at least a piece of that contract, and it's always turned down. So the answer is that it's easy to do, but it's certainly questionable when it appears that this is a huge advantage. And like you say, maybe money passes. So every dollar counts.
The question is, if we're unhappy with the
Can we be
situation.
recognized?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What committee signed this contract? What
What
committee
this-
bids and
excuse me.
acquisition?
If you look at the contract, 2012, it hasn't changed.
Who
I
said?
don't think it was a committee. I could take a look. I saw Dave Israel's name on it. So I don't know who or what at that time went with this. And if you go and you do research, you will find that this has been challenged in court. And so I feel whether it's $1 or $5 or $10, if we're paying $117, $1.17, $135,000. I would never assume, but in today's world, things change. And I would say there's a good portion of our population that's covered by their own medical insurance. Okay, and do you pay something? Yes, maybe no. But
I'm not a mathematician, but if they're saying 300, and that's what they're saying,
all I'm
okay?
saying is, this is just one of the items that, and I put that in more than one article, it's in this month's article, if she publishes it, that we're paying for services, not just this one, that we're not getting the full dump.
When does this
Okay.
come?
And John, you met with them, so I don't want to take your whole.
I know, I'll just explain a little bit what I found out by doing all this. A couple of my other board members are ex-EMT workers, so they got me set up right away. I actually went and met with the director of Palm Beach County Chief Fireman, I guess he would call it, she's,
Fire.
Jupiter. And that's where I got all this information. She says, printed it right out for me. This is more than just a rock. When calls come into Century Village, it's not just that truck 209 that comes here. There's other units, when they're busy or they're out somewhere, other units come in here from all over Palm Beach County. So it's not just them. This is a total of all the firehouses that respond, that come into Century Village. So this covers everything that comes in, and they're amazing. These people, they are into their job. And I would ask them too, I said, it's possible if you want to come here and give talks to us and stuff like that, and we can talk about that. But I set this up for us, so now on a yearly basis, we can expect the actual figures, well, even just send a fast note to reminder. And we could have it right away. They actually gave me a tour at a couple of the firehouses and a ride on a fire truck.
Every little boy's
I got to ring
dream.
the bell.
Pet the dog.
Yeah, no, there was no dog there, but I'm saying, yeah, fire dog. But this was actually pretty accurate, and they come in here for all sorts of reasons. Even some calls that come in here, they're probably not on here, false calls and stuff like that. They come in, there's nothing to do, and they just turn around and go back. It's easy for them, they just go out our back gate and go right in. As they told me, that's not the only truck that comes here, because the rock's all over the place.
Right.
And
They
they
gotta
have all these,
cover.
right, and they have all these other
Cover.
firehouses that come here.
When does this contract end? When can it be, when does this contract end? When can it be dealt with? Again, does it end in January?
It's annual,
Annual.
an annual contract, and I didn't bring it, but
So
it
I
hasn't
think,
No,
changed.
not that one.
You got the
Budget,
contract?
that's the budget.
I would say that
I think
when it comes up for renewal, bids and acquisitions should do the research on it. It's bids and acquisitions that start contracts, not finance.
AMO?
Don't you think that if you're bringing up the subject, you have to say what it is that you want in addition to and spell that out?
I think at this point, David Israel
I
signed
don't know
it.
what we're talking about.
Okay,
AMO contract.
No, I know, but I mean, what?
What is it?
First of all, we can't do anything. There's no quorum here.
I know,
Second of all, if we did want to do something, what is it we want to do?
exactly, that, we have to know that, otherwise, what's the point? Also, wait a minute. if they only have 300 calls divided by that big number that we pay,
Yeah.
how much per person are we paying for?
About four.
In other words, are we paying $60 a person, 70? I'm not a mathematician
Yeah.
and I'm lousy in math, so that's not my thing. But
It's not a matter
that
of
would
how
be a
much
good
you
number
pay
to figure out.
a person. It's been brought up that this is not an insurance policy, but it definitely is. In fact, it comes under the insurance law. Okay, now you say, what can we do? We could complain. We could try to find if there's another way of doing it. It's been here for a long time. And to me, it's a total monopoly.
Whatever it
It's
is, the
400.
delegates want it.
It's about 400, it's simple, it's, 300 into 120,000, it's about 400 per call.
Thank you, Mr. Mathematician. $400 a call,
It's
that's
pretty, it's not
a lot
hard.
of money. They can get a
Yeah,
Uber
but-
for 15 bucks.
Well, you
I don't
know,
know, that's
that's
why-
only part of it, but where they really get the big chunk is from your medical insurance.
Yeah.
That's where they make the claim, and that's why I say there probably is a very good percentage.
Oh, so they're getting, when they take a person to the hospital, they're getting paid also by the medical
Double
insurance?
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
Besides getting paid from us?
yes, the $1.17 we're paying is.
That's a bonanza for them.
It's a fraction.
Okay, in that case,
You
we
know-
can ask for anything you want.
We
If they
don't-
want the contract.
We don't know, that's why
They
bids
have a
and,
monopoly, I'm sorry.
when it comes up for renewal, bids and acquisitions
Yeah.
should do the research on it. I don't know if 400 is a lot or a little, they charge $700 or something like that?
750.
750. So that just,
Right.
it might seem like a bonanza to us, but that might be the going rate. But it's the prerogative of bids and acquisitions, not finance, to do the research.
Actually, when it was brought up before, and I brought it up with David there, I said, I'm looking to get all the pickups that AMR is doing, and I'm looking to get what the fire department does, and he basically said, you're never gonna get it. Well, we never got it from AMR. Okay, but the fire department was very willing to do it. So you're saying, what's the object? The object is to see if something can change. It
Okay.
may not, but I think, supposing it triples tomorrow, what would you do? You have no competition,
Right.
Right.
right?
Right.
Okay,
And I think in this country anyway, competition built this country.
I agree.
I personally don't know of, doesn't mean there is, any other major location that's limited to one company covering it. I don't know what
But
they.
that's, we're in it, we can't
What
get
I
out of
was
it.
told is this way people are assured that they have the service. Well, it's really the reverse because in many cases, it's just too much for them to handle. What I find here is when I look at 300 and I look at 2,400, if you subtract or add 300, that's 2,700.
No,
Now,
No.
the 2,400,
it's wrong.
how many of those people were charged?
2100.
How many of those people were charged?
2,100.
And that you don't know because you're not getting all the information.
Okay, so
So
the next time it
it's-
comes up, like you said, the next time it comes up, well,
Bids and acquisitions,
that's all.
that's it.
That's it. We can't do nothing here.
Yes, you can. You could do something any place.
No,
You could find out more information. You could see if there could be a conglomerate, if you want to call it, of good size condominiums nearby who can, through maybe a non-for-profit, can precipitate competition. And once you have competition, you may have broken what this is really a monopoly. And you've heard it, oh, I waited 2.5 hours, oh, I waited 3 hours.
Yeah, that's,
So what does that tell us regardless of what they say? There's too much on their plate. And if you read the contract, there's a lot of ands, ifs, and buts.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
When I'm told that when there's a wait like that, 2 or 3 hours, and the fire department is there, they actually stay with that patient until the truck comes.
Yeah, they don't have them, yeah, they're not
They hand you over
I
right
know.
by. They're required to stay there with that person.
Right.
All right. So find out when it expires and give it to bids and acquisitions. They can do the research. I doubt if the delegate assembly would go to a nonprofit volunteer.
Right,
God, we'd have to run it through legal. Good God, I don't think it's gonna go.
no, I mean, no,
One thing about the government is you can't sue them too well.
right. And when would you get the qualified people?
Yeah, all right. What's next? Old business?
I just want to return, when you say old business, back to our continuing job. And our continuing job, if you read, is very clear to continue to monitor what we're paying for and if we're getting the service. As I started off by saying, is what option do you have if you're not getting the service? Well, of course, one option is every contract could be broken, okay, under circumstances. My concern is, and I brought this up before, I haven't checked it yesterday. We're now what, in the 10th month? Where are our buses?
And bring that.
If you read the contract, it's very clear that these buses were supposed to be replaced, quote unquote, by newer buses. And I put it in an article, but I'll reiterated it then. I called the manufacturer. I did speak to people there because Academy has not given us what I think is relative information. And we are paying the spread, if you saw it, is a bus with 750 or 800,000 miles. Market price is like 50 to 75 or 100,000. 500,000 and less, which the bus was really built for, is $250,000. New buses of that manufacturer.
new or newer.
No errors in the
The
contract.
word new never appears in that contract.
So newer,
Late model,
late model,
late model,
so then
not new. Not
they did
newer.
give us later
Late
models.
Model means
They-
not classic.
Okay, so then,
That's the official
Then where's the
definition, it's not a
deficiency?
classic model,
Right,
a late model.
All right.
Well,
That's what the contract says.
well, the contract may say late model, but it's very clear that the contract says what we're giving you to start is going to be replaced.
And they have been,
And
they have replaced some of the buses,
how many buses have
at
we?
least two
Yeah,
that have
the
that
one and that,
stripe on them
right.
that I've seen.
yes.
Yeah,
When?
does it say replaced as needed or
No.
just replaced?
No, it says,
replaced.
Does it say some buses or all
It
buses?
just says replaced.
it says will be
And it's in
replaced.
every
be
effort. I
replaced.
believe it's in every effort clause.
Okay,
We'll make every effort to
Well,
replace with newer model. But am I right? You read this contract.
Well,
Yeah.
It's,
it
it's in
doesn't
every
say,
effort,
it doesn't
which is
say
meaningless.
effort. And the most important part of that contract says, if there's a discrepancy, all you have to do is set up a meeting and resolve the discrepancy,
Okay.
okay? When you say late model, it has to be somewhat old to put in 800,000 miles. That's the bottom line. And I gotta tell you, they're pretty open. And there are two other manufacturers that make a similar kind of bus. But that's not the point. If we're paying for something, I think we should get it. And if we're wrong, it should be reconciled at a table, which is in the contract very clearly.
It appears to me that the contracts have to be read a little more carefully
Yeah.
and maybe clarified a little more carefully when they're originally written out. I mean, if we're gonna have these questions about how many late model and whether it's 2, 4, or all, and what is the late model, what year, these things have to be spelled out in a contract, and so this is,
Well, you're absolutely right, and we paid a goodly fee to an attorney who's supposed to be.
I hope it wasn't Tennyson.
No, it wasn't Dennison, and it was missed. However, it isn't an ironclad contract. I see.
Contract to Mr. Handelsman, I think you can do about it.
You can look at it, but I see nothing wrong with questioning it with the vendor. And it's being resisted. And I think anything to do with money
Okay,
should be reviewed. And what would, this is, you say, one said one thing, one said another. I was specifically here when Omar said, we're trying to get buses, but there's none available. Okay, but when I called Infinity in Canada, I said, we're looking for used buses, low mileage. And he said, oh, we got 6 of those sitting right here on the lot, waiting to be bought. Now, I was told, it's not my job. I feel anything that has to do with money is my job, that the, what do you call it? The Transportation Committee should do something. I brought it up. Nobody wanted to go forward. But that doesn't make it right. So that's one of the reasons. One of the things, when I put this all together, is if you go back several years, which I did, the fixed amount that we paid, all of you, fixed, was in the neighborhood of four and a quarter million. Now you're over $6 million in non-negotiable costs. And it goes up, and it's gonna go up now. People are gonna feel it. You're gonna get $20 here and $5 here. So to say we can't do anything, I think that's wrong. I think we have an opportunity, the budget's passed, to take an item at a time and review it and try to get as much more information as possible. John did a hell of a job. It's a good thing they didn't throw him off the roof.
No, actually, they were really nice to me.
But I
Well,
think,
we pay their salary.
Yeah, but they're very job oriented.
Yeah, they're very good.
Right,
I don't think it's anything to do with the guys and girls who
right.
run. They have to be dedicated to
Right.
want to run into a fire building. But I think it's our job from a financial standpoint to question everything. I know that on another matter in general, it's always brought up that WPRF always uses the same vendors, and that's not good. Well, and I brought it up at the table with Donald there. You're using the same vendors all the time also. So nothing is perfect, but to sit here and twiddle our thumbs, I don't think the right thing to do. And that's just part of it. I mean, and each individual has their own preference. At the operations meeting, you could fight over $12, $5, $7. And here you're talking a great deal of money.
Yeah.
Now, what's really a big amount of money, and I'm not saying change it now, I think we need to go into it deeper. And I mentioned it to you, Walter, and you said, how can you do it? Well, if you go online, which I did, you will see the amount of resistance now to using cable companies. They just keep getting higher and higher and higher. And this location, which I'm exactly sure about, but I go by what David said, and that goes back. And if you go online, you'll see that you can pick up the standard channels anywhere from 20 to 40 miles from here. And when I look at what we're obligated to do, originally I thought it was in writing, but it isn't. We, as whatever you want to call UCO, is to provide television, not Wi-Fi, not this, not television. And you can provide television. Yeah,
You know what I'm gonna say? If we give this proposal to everybody, they're not gonna go for it, just television. They've been getting cable all this time. To tell them now, we're not gonna pay for everything. You're only gonna have basic TV channels. Anything else, you're gonna have to pay for yourself. You're gonna have a war.
well,
You're gonna have the pitchforks and the flares coming to your house.
that doesn't bother me.
I'm just saying, they're gonna
You
turn it down.
know how much it is?
I know it's expensive. They're
No,
gonna
no,
turn it
no,
down.
forget the offensive. What would you say per month it's costing each not owner, each unit per month?
About $35 for
Yeah.
the cable,
Right.
which is dirt cheap, a third to a half of
Right,
if you're
35,
doing it on your
$45,
own.
sure.
And although the internet fees have gone up, it's still a third to a half,
Right.
and we have some control.
Right, now, we know eventually everything's gonna come off the satellite and go to Wi-Fi.
Right.
And there's a lot of things now they're fighting with the Wi-Fi, especially with the speed. The 5-speed thing that's coming,
In 5G.
5G is now coming. There's a lot of discrepancies with that, saying people are getting sick from the 5G.
Yeah.
Because they're putting in more towers to make things faster.
Well,
So, but eventually everything's gonna be on Wi-Fi.
I would say you're not that far away
Right,
from Wi-Fi. And yes, but you're talking, people are gonna get now, what, a $20 increase from
right.
WPRF? And I don't think you're far off, Richard. I did a rough calculation around $37, $38 a month this year,
Yeah,
plus more next year.
it's all built into the contract. It was $1.25 a year for the
Right.
cable.
Well,
It's all built in. We signed it. We can cancel it. give
but
it
the
3 months.
contract is not irrevocable.
We can cancel it if we give them 90 days notice before each anniversary date.
Right.
Otherwise, it's go to court and pay Bumpkus fees like we did already.
Well, I think the key thing here is, it's good to say, it would be nice to have a little bit of an experiment to see that it really provides what you read it provides. And I've looked at some of those antennas are not really that expensive. Now, those people who want to have Wi-Fi and all the bells and whistles can still have it. If you're not paying $35 or $38 a month, you have that to spend plus whatever else. There are people here who are spending $100 a month. That's up to them.
I checked on one to see what channels are gonna be available with an antenna. And I noticed that I watch MSNBC. And it was not on there. So that means if I went there, I couldn't watch my MSNBC. But I
Where was
could
this?
watch Fox News, which I despise.
Yeah, I don't, yeah. No,
So there you go.
But only Fox News Local.
Well, I had a
I
comment.
didn't know, it just
I'm
said
pretty
Fox
sure only
News.
Fox News Local,
Yeah, well,
because they own the local, one of the local franchises.
yeah, so,
All I could say is I had a discussion, and it was yesterday, with Fausto, and I said, the demographics of Century Village has changed. You have a lot more people who have a fair amount of money, and it doesn't really mean anything. And he said, no, there's still a bunch of people that they can't afford it, they can't do this, they
There
can't.
is.
Right.
So the answer is, where do you draw the line? I think, and I'm not a forecaster, this economy is gonna get worse. And
Of
as
course,
it-
the Russians invaded the Ukraine and we're in the deep shit house. Let's face it, that's the truth, that's the reality, and that's the reason we are here at this time in America, and not only us, but also Europe and other countries. They're also in the same boat that we're in. That's the reality.
Well, not all, because some have a different kind of an economy. Some are socialistic. A lot of things are paid for, including medical.
Right.
Including medical. And it's very hard to protect yourself because you don't really know, I don't really know. God forbid something really major happens, are you really gonna get top-notch treatment? And the reason I bring that is a good friend of mine, which I mentioned, I went to not too long ago for his 60th anniversary. And it was his 90th birthday. As of now, 2 weeks ago, he's in the hospital. They don't really know what it is, and it isn't something good. And even though I think he has his own medical, he's in the VA house. So all I'm saying is, there's no one answer, but one thing from experience I used to do with attorneys, a great deal of personal bankruptcies. And you'd be surprised at who goes bankrupt and why they go bankrupt.
Good, maybe you go bankrupt. We'll
Well-
all go bankrupt.
You could go bankrupt, but I'm talking about individuals. And a lot of people are really not prepared to change their way of life in time
Right.
to avoid the bankruptcies. In my class of cases of a couple that I had, and this goes back a good amount of years, a good six-figure income. And when he retired, they had a fair amount of reserves, but they never cut back. And in a few years, bankruptcy. People are getting used to, just like you said, well, they're used to this, they're used to that. The final decision is going to be up to the delegates. But I still feel we should bring alternative options.
You could bring it up,
That's,
whatever committee wants to
that's
do
what we
this.
have committees for. This
Whatever
whole
committee-
discussion, broadband.
Yeah, whatever committee, they could bring it up and that's it, but we can't do that here.
Right. And can we
Right.
go to the other subject that we have, the one we had talked about with the,
Okay,
because I have a 2 o'clock with some medical people.
John has come up with another piece of information,
Okay. Right.
and I think I found it unusual, and this has nothing to do with the daily expenses. John got
All right, I'll go over some of that.
Go.
from people who live in.
Right, I'm right by in Stratford B, so we're right there next to the medical building. We're right there. Now, the proposal's
Oh.
coming up now with the old, yes,
Shrubs.
yeah, all we have is a little gate there. Now, we just had a problem where 2 trees fell and one of them hit that fence. We're that close. Now, with the proposal coming up, they want to put 2 swimming pools in there.
Yep.
So myself and one of the other board members, we went and looked and some of the Casidians live there with us along with the Orthodox.
Mhm.
And I see what's going on. They want to put 2 pools in there. I don't know if they're that set on actually putting those pools in, but they're talking about it. This is what it's gonna do. One of the pools, I think, for the women is right up against our fence. That whole side there, we have people in Stratford A, that's their front yard. That is only a few feet. They got their car, the fence, and then the pool is gonna be right there. Very noisy. And then when we're looking at the plans, they say, well, you have a pumping station, a water pumping station right there. Yes, they want to move it to somewhere else.
Yeah.
That does not cover Stratford, that covers Waltham and a few other associations that are right there also. So that's what, I took votes because when they're all gone, I oversee all those condos and those associations. A, B, C, D, and E. And I got this email that, because he's coming down here, the president of A, he said, put a vote in on my behalf. He says, we are against it. And they're the ones right up against that fence. They do not want all that noise and all that, the pool and the pumps, the water pumps and all, to be that close to their fence. He says, we live right there. He said, it's our car, and then a few feet, we have the fence. He says, it's gonna be way too noisy, and they're gonna move our water pumping station. They don't want it. And he said, you're taking all those parking spaces away. You have now, you have a medical in there now too.
Next
Where are they gonna park?
You know, there's a meeting, right?
Next Thursday.
Yeah, I know. That's why I started getting this.
Yeah, you want to make sure that all of that is brought up at the meeting.
Yeah, so-
Every one of, whoever you're representing,
I know, well
make
done.
sure you're voicing that
But
to
here's the
the
thing,
commissioners.
Right, I met with the Casitas and I met with the Orthodox. It's easy, just knock on my next door neighbor's door. It looks like from A, because they're right there, I'm in B and C, and the rest of them doesn't mind the pool there for a different reason, because it's gonna put the values up. All our homes are gonna go up in value like they have been like crazy. So now they're more interested in the property increase, the equity that's gonna be in the homes. I said, but these people are also, they're right there, it's too noisy. They said, well, they can deal with it.
But you're gonna have to give them an easement.
Yeah,
There's an offset easement as it's part of that proposal.
Proposal.
right,
You want to make sure that if the people who have to, the association that has to grant that easement is against it, that they vote that way.
right, that's
And
what,
show up. The most important is to show
I
up.
was saying, I'm gonna have to
If you
do
don't
that
show
for
up,
them.
they're gonna assume that you're gonna agree.
Now,
And
what do
they'll
I have
pass
to,
it on to the next
right,
level.
do I have to go to Yuko for, I know for the bus, to go there is when I have to
Yeah,
drive.
Donald,
John.
go.
Send that letter to each of the county
Yeah.
commissioners.
Yes, I was gonna do that.
Email it to them and also the zoning commissioners,
Oh, I have that
each of them. That address is available
Absolutely.
on
on
the,
that
Greg
line.
Weiss.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Greg
Weiss, I have
Weiss.
that.
do that, because that's what I did with my letter.
Yeah.
And then Donald's latest, or his last two LCAM reports, he lists
All of them,
all the
right.
commissioners
Yeah.
that you can email.
Right,
I've been
and now it's
emailing him.
next, what's the third, November 3rd, I think is the next one.
It's a week from tomorrow. Today's Wednesday, it's a week from tomorrow.
I have no
Thursday.
idea how busy I am right now.
And then 3 weeks after that is the county commissioners.
Wow.
And the time, the leave, it's 9 o'clock next week from Thursday, so the bus will probably leave 8:30, some.
So that's November 3rd is the next one, right?
Yeah,
Thursday.
Wow.
9
I
o'clock.
have
in the-
nothing on that day, but
9 o'clock in the morning.
I guess I would send the letters out to the commissioners first. And do I contact Donald also and let him know?
Well, if you want to
Zoning.
take the bus, if you want to go on the bus, I think Donald is taking.
Yeah, Donald's
Because,
already taken.
you know, we have-
That's why I don't have to drive over there. I don't
Yeah,
have to worry about running.
it's right over the interstate.
I'm gonna tell you something, I made it one of the points in my letter that since we are a HUD community, and under HUD, anything that's done has to be available to all the residents. And this will not be available to all the residents.
It's-
Therefore, there may be some legal consequences if they pass this thing.
It's
And
private,
that point I brought out in my letter,
it's private property.
huh?
It's
But
private
even so-
property. It's not part of Century Village. It's
It's
private
in our
property.
community, yeah, well,
They
that,
can do,
that could be questionable because it was part of our community.
it was never, it's private property. That's all I can say, just like the recreation facility.
So are our
private property.
condominium associations, we're on property owned by us, by the association,
Common element.
right?
By the,
Oh,
yeah,
Isn't that private property?
let me,
So,
sure.
let me,
So another condo can't tell you what to do.
exactly,
And
so,
you cannot tell, the zoning commission
It-
you can't tell the people who own that building what to do. Only the
Except that
zoning.
that building is within our community and it's part, in essence, it couldn't,
Never. It's
It's covered
private
by the
property.
roadway agreement. though.
Excuse me.
Covered by the
HUD is
roadway.
gonna have to work this out,
Excuse me,
yeah.
All right, we're getting.
I
off the
was
subject.
told that the reason Ante Shalom is on a separate piece of property is because of the HUD regulation when
Thank
they
you.
built it.
There you go.
Now,
There you
if
go.
it still carries forward,
Then,
I don't know, but
there you go.
that particular piece of real estate was donated by the Levy's and it's off our map
Right, that's right,
because of HUD.
right. There you go. Well, then that's it.
I don't know if that's it because with the law, today it's it, tomorrow it's something else.
But it-
All right, let's get
That's a
back
whole
to
other subject.
T-bills.
It's not finance committee
Let's
related.
get to old
T-bills.
business, new
T-
business,
T-bills.
T-bills, not so on and so
All
forth.
right.
Okay, go ahead.
The rate is going up, November first
Oh,
and
I
second,
know, God.
75 basis points. So that's gonna start pushing the T-bill rates now, because bonds are gonna be going up.
And
Good, we'll buy
Because
it.
they gotta slow the
We will
economy
buy
down.
them as individuals.
Buy all you want.
As of today, it was 4.01.
Wait after November second, that's what they're waiting for when, Jerome comes back in again and raises the rate again.
Now, when you say the rate, is that a year?
A year,
T-bill?
yeah,
A year,
yeah.
okay.
6 months is at
Point
3.2.
something, yeah, but 4%, but that's gonna
A
go
year
after
is-
November second.
Right.
One of the 2 days, having a 2-day meeting.
Now,
banks are going up too, but
Yes.
once you buy that CD, you're locked.
Right, or you pay a
So,
penalty, and also you
I mean-
pay the broker fee for the bank,
I know.
and then if you sell it early, you get another penalty on that. So
I want to bring to your attention that Richard is proposing 2 amendments to our bylaws. And the first amendment is the count of those who vote, not the count of those who were
Votes
in the
cast.
room.
Votes cast, you should
Votes
pay.
cast, not members present. They never match, never, never.
Wow.
And Robert's rule says that, and you can call it an abstention, although some people probably don't know what they're doing, should never be counted. So I'm just bringing it into line.
Well, I've heard at more than one meeting, we don't really have to follow Robert's rules. It's not the law.
It's a guideline.
It's a guideline.
I know.
And that's been the way we've been operating for a long, long time. Because at the meeting where I brought up that with the clickers, which is a good idea, you don't have to schlep them. You could make a motion from the floor and immediately you say, well, you could postpone the motion. Well, we never postpone the motion most of the time. So there's always an action and a reaction. And it could be all over before we know it. There's no question in my mind that nothing is going to stay the same. Now, I spoke to Niels this week because I wanted to confirm with him the deadlines of doing the alteration to the elevators, that they're safe, and the certifications of buildings over 3 stories. And Neil said he can't guarantee it, but they're working on getting an extension of time for certifying the buildings. Because the other thing I question him on is because Greg at one of our delegate assemblies say, look, if you want your building inspected, you don't have to pay anything. Call me and I'll arrange for the engineers to come down and inspect your building. Now that sounded pretty nice because it's A, they're very hard to get now, and B, it's an expense. But Niels came back and said, it's not really true. They will only come back if you say there is an imperfection in the structure of my condominium, and it won't qualify as an inspection. And all that's additional expenses. So,
Did anybody ever look into the law that originally somebody said 3-story buildings or more, but have to have more than 255 units? Somebody said that at a meeting. They got up and they said that they looked into it and it said you had to have more than 255, but it was never clarified. It was never looked into.
I've never heard.
I never,
Yeah.
I
I
do,
was at a
recall-
meeting.
I remember hearing that,
You
yeah.
remember?
Yep.
See, I remember that too.
where would you check it?
The law. You go
Or the
and pull up
statute.
the
Yeah,
statute.
one of the
Well-
statutes, you can go right online and look. Yeah.
It's big news these days, so it's easy to
I
just do
have to
a
meet some
little
medical
Google
people.
search.
I got medical people to take care of some of the people. I gotta get them passes to come into Century Village. So they need somebody from inside the village to take them to get the passes. That's what I'm
John,
doing. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
we'll miss you, but you.
All right, thank you. Keep up the good work. Which door is open? That one or this one?
Any of them go out.
Not the front,
Not the front. Go out
either of the back.
All right, thank you. See you at the assembly.
Take care, John.
Very good, thank you.
All right, T-bills or no T-bills? No
Yes,
T-bills right
yes.
now.
Well, I think I
They're gonna
covered,
go up.
Yeah,
I think it should be, as it says there, being postponed until stronger documentation. I am awaiting
Okay,
George Lowenstein's. What I don't have is a communication line to Randall Bouchard,
he's, in-
who he
he's
was,
with his girlfriend in London.
is that where he is?
Yeah, he's in
Well, they get
London.
letters
We're
there.
not gonna get him.
I emailed him and he doesn't, neither he nor Anita know when and why the change was.
He didn't answer
The
your
elimination, it was either before, it was before his time. No one knows.
I
Well,
remember-
neither of
I
tho-
remember.
neither of those
How long
two know.
ago?
I
I
remember, was at an advisory meeting. You were there, but
What?
one of
could,
the, when Anita was head of the advisory meeting, okay?
Yeah,
I recall that they were going over all of them and they wanted to eliminate redundant words. And since T-bills was automatically guaranteed by the government, they decided to eliminate the word T-bills.
okay.
Now, they didn't record those meetings, I don't think. If they have a recording of it, it would be there, but that's what I remember, because I went to a good deal of those meetings. And that's what I remember.
but listen, without it in writing, and I went to a bunch because.
You're not
I-
gonna get it in writing because it was something that was discussed. And it just, so they crossed out T-bills and that was it. End of
And it
story.
was not the
Well,
current version.
If that's the
This
case,
was
it
more than
doesn't-
10 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. You're looking at more than 10 years, right?
More than,
You're looking at something that's more than 10 years old, aren't you?
2009,
Okay, so it's more than
It
10. The corporation does not need to provide anything more than 10 years old. So if it happened more-
I hear
it's
you.
not there.
The statute does not provide for that.
I would say the statute was very clear that I read, that if you don't vote on something,
All those, the whole thing was taken to the delegate assembly and they voted on the change,
well,
on all of them, period.
The
group
current
at a time.
bylaws are what's in
if you
effect.
could do that, you could change the bylaws anytime without bringing it. I'm not an attorney, you are not an attorney. It may be a special case.
What do you
The
mean
bottom
by?
line is that when we had an actual vote, the vote confirmed that more people wanted to buy it that didn't want to buy it. And the holdup was the
2/3.
current
Right.
wording in the
The problem
bylaws.
the problem is the officers and everybody else voted against T-bills, but they all accepted the fact that they were guaranteed by the government, yet they decided to vote no on it. So it's like,
The delegates didn't vote 2/3 and that was it. That's it.
Yeah, so it's like we're beating a dead horse here.
Well,
You'd have to change.
it all depends on
Put the
what
words
the law,
back in.
what the law
That's-
really is.
There you go. That's what Mr. Handelsman is saying. Put the words back
You have
in.
to get the words back in. It's gotta go through the routine.
Right.
And fine, if we ever, all right. Update on Breeze Line? What's the update?
Breeze line,
It says it here.
update on Breeze line.
Oh, if you notice, it says postponed somewhere, right?
It, what?
Carry forward.
Carry forward, okay.
Where's it?
That's not gonna be covered today.
Okay.
Oh. So you haven't heard anything about that bulk rate they came up with a couple months ago?
What's that?
Oh,
Breeze Line came in a broadband meeting, that John Person, I believe his name is, they have a bulk. They were gonna give us a bulk rate, a new bulk rate, if everyone chipped in. Of course, it would.
Was that the extra
Major
30 bucks?
changes. Major changes.
Yeah.
And as I wrote, those who were here all year and use it, they would benefit. And the less you use it, or the less you're here, the less you benefit. The way it is with all amenities.
talking about them adding internet and then charging the bulk rate.
Yeah,
Yeah, there are a lot of buildings that have internet, like mine, and I'm sure there are about yours and a few others. I pay $7 and change for internet.
and you would vote against it.
Yeah, so
It
in
would
other
add
words,
$22 to the bulk rate.
they are trying to do this now to make money, because if you want to give them, in my opinion, they took this contract out of desperation. They wanted to get a hold in
Gateway.
this area, and I don't think they're making enough money to satisfy them. Whether they're losing money, I don't know. But I think that's the reason they're presenting this. It's just to
Yeah.
make them richer.
You're talking about the extra 30 bucks.
Yes, by including everybody.
We
And-
had the same argument when we talked about the same thing.
Initially, during the contract negotiations,
Right.
they
exactly.
wanted to add that and charge us $50-something to start. And we brought in the other, was it Comcast? And they butted up against Comcast, realized they had competition, so
Right.
they had to give us what we wanted. No internet and the lower price. Like competition. There
Well,
you go.
Well,
absolutely, and it was a close vote anyway. at that
Yeah.
time. However, nothing is last forever.
Just like us, we don't live forever.
Speak for yourself.
We don't last forever. I better not last forever.
Does anybody want to cover anything else?
Nope, I'm ready to say, let's adjourn this meeting.
Yeah, what's the asterisk on adjournment for? What's that asterisk?
On which?
On adjournment.
German has an asterisk after it.
I mean, do we adjourn or do we put in cots and sleep here all day?
All right,
We gotta figure out what it is.
For
Where,
purposes of the minutes, can we approve the minutes of the last?
meeting.
Because there was a lot of them.
Yeah, I see all that.
Yeah, we'll approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Yeah.
do we have enough people to?
Can we approve without a quorum? Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
You can't do a thing without a quorum.
All
Okay.
right.
I withdraw my question.
I don't know if you can approve it without-
How many people are on the committee? Do you know?
Well,
Do you keep track?
Well, I don't know, you might have a quorum, because Barbara Cornish is no longer with us.
Yeah.
well, then that makes it 6.
You have 6 active, 6 on the committee now.
Without Barbara, there's 6.
Six, so we got 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, no, 3.
We got 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
No, he's not a member.
This is gonna be an arguing point. The bylaws state that the finance committee, the treasurer is the chair. That makes him a committee member, not ex officio. It's stated right in the bylaws.
Ah,
It's the same with the officers committee, and it's the same, I'm gonna bring it up, the executive committee. The bylaws state officers plus 20 elected. They're not ex officio, according to me.
Oh, okay.
So
well,
we'll
What committee is
see.
that?
Hmm?
What committee is that?
Executive?
Sorry, the operations committee.
All right,
oh, Operation.
Yeah, did I say executive board?
I thought you meant
I
executive
didn't
board. Yeah,
mean-
because 20 is the
I meant
executive board.
operations committee shall consist of the officers plus
That
20.
doesn't- I don't think I could be wrong, probably am, I don't even think the officers have to be on the operations committee,
They do.
do they?
It says in the bylaw,
Okay,
yeah,
I thought that could be
no,
whomever.
although the
Well, you're right,
operations,
you're right, it could be
the operations,
it could be nobody other than officers.
the operations committee is an independent, people don't realize that it's really independent.
The operation.
The chairman could have
It's a-
nobody but officers on it, or any one other person on it.
Or, well, yeah, who they put on, right? And even that's not strictly, we'll get off on it. I've been on forever.
Okay, I'm gonna end the meeting.
All right.
I'm gonna end the